Peppa Pig's house always seemed like a safe place, warm and cozy. But today something changed in familiar atmosphere. Peppa and George were playing in living room when heard strange whisper from basement. Voice called their names, promising to show amazing toy. In corner of room appeared amber figure with spiders on body. Labubu smiled creepy smile. His eyes glowed with hypnotic light. Children felt irresistible desire to find this mysterious Labubu. They couldn't resist his call, as if under spell. Peppa and George went down to basement, following flickering traces. Steps creaked under their feet. Air became colder. In basement reigned impenetrable darkness, but amber glow showed way. Labubu lured children deeper into labyrinth of dark corridors. Basement walls covered with cobwebs, real spiders crawled from corners. They whispered to children which direction to go further. Peppa noticed exit disappeared behind them. Corridors changed, creating endless labyrinth with no way back. George tried calling Mummy, but his voice dissolved in darkness. Sounds didn't reach upper floor, as if darkness swallowed them. Labubu appeared right and left, always staying at distance. His amber body pulsed with ominous light in darkness. Children walked further, not understanding they fell into trap. Each step led them from real world into dimension of shadows. Air filled with buzzing of invisible insects. Spiders on Labubu's body came alive, weaving web around children. Peppa and George found themselves in huge cave, lit only by amber glow. Here time flowed differently, reality distorted. Labubu finally stopped before children. His smile became even wider, eyes burned with ancient evil. He explained children searched for him, now became part of his collection. In darkness appeared silhouettes of other missing children. Peppa and George realized they couldn't return home. They became prisoners of Amber Labubu in his dark realm. Upstairs, parents searched for children, but basement seemed ordinary. Nobody could find entrance to Shadow Dimension. Labubu showed children their new home, endless corridors where they would play forever. But these games brought no joy. Children turned into shadows of themselves, forever lost in labyrinth. Their laughter echoed through dark corridors. Amber Labubu returned to Upper World, leaving his figure in another house. He waited for new children who would want to find him. Basement darkness kept secret of vanished children. They forever remained in Shadow World where Amber Labubu rules. The peaceful village where Peppa Pig lived had always been safe and cheerful. But deep in the dark forest, something ancient and terrible had awakened from its slumber. Strange roars echoed through the trees at night, frightening all the animals. The forest creatures whispered about a green giant with glowing red eyes. Peppa heard the grown-ups talking about the mysterious newcomer in hushed voices. They said he was different from anyone they had ever seen. Daddy Pig dismissed the rumors as silly forest tales and legends. But Mummy Pig noticed how the birds had stopped singing near the woods. George found strange, massive footprints near their garden fence one morning. The prints were deeper than any animal they knew could make. Grandpa Pig warned the family to stay away from the forest. But curiosity burned bright in Peppa's adventurous heart, stronger than any warning. The family decided to venture into the woods to meet their neighbor. They packed a picnic basket, thinking it would be a friendly visit. As they walked deeper into the forest, the trees grew taller and darker. The cheerful bird song faded into an eerie, unnatural silence. A terrible smell filled the air, like rotting vegetables and swamp water. Mummy Pig suggested they should turn back, but Daddy Pig insisted they continue. They found a crude hut made of mud and twisted branches. Smoke rose from a chimney and strange shadows moved behind dirty windows. The door creaked open, revealing a massive green figure with burning eyes. His smile showed rows of sharp, yellowed teeth that gleamed menacingly. Shrek's voice was deep and rumbling, like distant thunder before a storm. He invited the family inside with gestures that seemed almost too eager. The interior of the hut was dark and filled with mysterious objects. Bones hung from the ceiling, and strange potions bubbled in dirty cauldrons. Peppa felt uneasy as Shrek's red eyes followed their every movement. George hid behind Mummy Pig, sensing something was terribly wrong with their host. Shrek offered them food that looked spoiled and smelled awful. When they politely declined, his friendly expression began to change into something sinister. The family tried to leave, but the door had mysteriously locked itself. The windows were too high, and Shrek blocked their only escape route. One by one, the family members began to feel drowsy and confused. The air in the hut seemed to grow thicker and harder to breathe. Peppa's vision blurred as she watched her family members collapse around her. Shrek's laughter echoed through the hut, cold and terrifying. The next morning, the village noticed the pig family hadn't returned home. Search parties combed the forest but found no trace of them. Days passed and the family's house stood empty and silent. Their car remained in the driveway, covered with fallen leaves and morning dew. Weeks later, hikers reported seeing strange lights in Shrek's part of the forest. But when they investigated, they found only an empty clearing. The hut had vanished without a trace, leaving only scorched earth behind. No one ever saw the pig family or the mysterious green stranger again. Local children now avoid the forest, especially when darkness falls. Susie Sheep comes to visit Peppa with a special gift, but something about her seems strange and frightening. Susie gives Peppa a small green Labubu creature as present. Her eyes glow unnaturally bright and eerie. Peppa happily accepts the gift and hugs Labubu tightly. She doesn't notice its evil, sinister smile. At night, Labubu comes alive in Peppa's bedroom. Its eyes burn with bright green radioactive light. Labubu starts dripping poisonous green slime on Peppa's toys. Everything around begins to rot and decay. In the morning, Peppa finds her toys ruined and damaged. Labubu pretends to be an ordinary stuffed toy. Susie comes to visit again the next day. She behaves very strangely and in a creepy manner. Peppa tells Susie about her ruined toys and problems. Susie only smiles in a sinister, evil way. Mummy Pig notices that Susie looks different somehow, but she cannot understand what exactly has changed. At night, Labubu comes alive again with glowing eyes. It ruins family photos with poisonous dripping slime. Peppa wakes up and sees Labubu moving around. She screams in terror and absolute horror. Parents rush to help, but Labubu pretends to be toy. Nobody believes Peppa's frightening story. Susie comes in the morning and suggests going to forest. She wants to play with Labubu there. In the dark forest, Susie leads Peppa to Old Hut. A terrifying witch lives in that place. The witch emerges from the hut and thanks fake Susie. She brought another victim for her plans. Peppa understands the horrible truth about her situation. This Susie is not her friend, but evil double. In a cage near the hut sits real Susie. She cries and begs desperately for help and rescue. The witch explains that fake Susie helps her catch children. She uses Labubu as magical trap. Labubu transforms into a huge monster with dripping slime. Its poison becomes even more dangerous and toxic. Peppa tries to run away from the forest, but fake Susie and witch surround her completely. Dr. Bear searches for missing Peppa everywhere, but he goes in the wrong direction, unfortunately. Peppa's family thinks she is playing with Susie safely. They don't suspect any danger or trouble. In the forest, Witch prepares magical spell ritual. Fake Susie helps her with dark ceremony. Real Susie remains trapped in the cage forever. Nobody knows that she is imprisoned there. Labubu guards the prisoners with poisonous abilities. Escape from this place is completely impossible. Peppa Pig's house always seemed peaceful at night, but something sinister watched from the darkness outside. George lay in his bed, clutching Mr. Dinosaur tightly. A terrifying shadow appeared at his bedroom window. The green figure waved slowly at frightened George. Evil Shrek smiled with glowing red eyes menacingly. George trembled under his warm blanket covers. The monster gestured for him to come outside. Night after night, Shrek returned faithfully watching. George watched in terror from his bed. George ran to Peppa's room, crying desperately. She rolled her eyes at his silly stories. At breakfast, George told his worried parents. Daddy Pig laughed at the wild imagination. Mummy Pig patted George's head, gently smiling. Everyone thought he was just dreaming nightmares. Peppa teased George about his imaginary monster. She called him a silly little brother. Grandpa Pig visited for Sunday dinner together. George begged him to believe the truth. Even wise Grandpa shook his head sadly. Nobody took George's warnings seriously anymore. The waving continued every single dark night. Shrek's smile grew wider each time. George stopped telling anyone about the visits. Fear consumed his tiny pig heart completely. Dark circles appeared under George's tired eyes. He barely slept or ate anymore. Peppa noticed George acting very strange lately, but she ignored his frightened behavior completely. One stormy night, Shrek beckoned more urgently. His red eyes burned brighter than ever before. George felt an invisible force pulling him. He walked toward the bedroom window slowly. The window opened by itself, mysteriously wide. Cold wind rushed into the room violently. George climbed onto the windowsill very slowly. Shrek's hand reached out for him eagerly. Morning came, but George wasn't in bed. His bed remained empty and cold forever. Peppa found Mr. Dinosaur abandoned on floor. The toy pointed toward the open window. The family searched everywhere, desperately calling his name. But George had vanished without trace. Police found only muddy footprints outside house. They led into the dark forest depths. The house fell silent without little George. His empty chair haunted every meal sadly. Sometimes at night, Peppa hears strange sounds, someone waving at her bedroom window now. Peppa Pig's house always seemed like the safest place, but dark secrets lurked in the shadows outside. Peppa played happily in the garden alone today. A terrifying green shadow watched from behind trees. Evil Shrek emerged with glowing red eyes menacingly. His menacing smile promised something dreadful would happen. Peppa noticed the monster approaching slowly toward her. She tried to run but felt strangely paralyzed. Shrek's hypnotic gaze trapped little Peppa completely helpless. She walked toward him like a sleepwalker. The ogre grabbed Peppa and vanished quickly. Only her red shoes remained on grass. George found Peppa's shoes in the garden. He ran inside, screaming for help desperately. Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig rushed outside frantically. The garden was empty except for shoes. The family searched every corner frantically, calling loudly. But Peppa had disappeared without any trace. Grandpa Pig joined the desperate search mission immediately. Even he couldn't find any clues anywhere. Police arrived with search dogs immediately for help. The dogs led them to Forest Edge. Deep in the dark forest stood mysteriously an ancient tower covered in twisted vines. Shrek had locked Peppa in highest room cruelly. The tower had no doors or stairs. Peppa sat trapped behind stone walls, crying softly. The window was too high to escape. Days passed, but nobody found the tower. It remained hidden by evil magic spells. The family put up missing posters everywhere desperately. Peppa's face smiled from every wall sadly. Weeks turned into months of searching hopelessly everywhere. Still no sign of little Peppa anywhere. Grandpa told ancient legends about the cursed tower. It only appears to chosen victims mysteriously. George drew pictures of his missing sister. He never stopped believing she'd return home. The house felt empty without Peppa's joyful laughter. Her room remained exactly the same always. Sometimes they heard faint crying sounds echoing, coming from deep within the forest depths. But whenever they followed the sounds carefully, the crying would suddenly stop completely silent. Peppa remained trapped in the stone tower forever, watching the world through tiny window bars. She could see her family searching below, but they could never see her above. Regular day at nursery began as usual. Madame Gazelle greeted children with a familiar smile. But something was wrong. Madame Gazelle's eyes strangely gleamed, and smiles seemed too wide. Peppa noticed teacher whispering something incomprehensible when thinking nobody could hear. New toy appeared on table. Dark red Labubu with burning red eyes watched children. Madame Gazelle said this was special toy. She called it Great Labubu and asked children to bow. Children laughed, thinking it was game, but Madame Gazelle was serious as never before. During lesson, teacher told strange stories about ancient gods requiring sacrifices. George got scared and cried. Madame Gazelle sternly said, "Tears offend, great Labubu." At lunchtime, Madame Gazelle placed toy in center of table and lit candles around it. She forced children to repeat incomprehensible words in unknown language. Labubu seemed pleased. After lunch, Madame Gazelle locked all doors and windows. She said time for special lesson came. Labubu's red eyes glowed brighter. Toy began growing, becoming child-sized. Madame Gazelle explained she served Great Labubu for many years. Children are his favorite food. Peppa tried running away, but doors were locked. Windows wouldn't open either. Madame Gazelle began reading incantations. Labubu grew bigger, his eyes burning like fire. Children realized their teacher went insane. She was preparing them as sacrifice to demonic being. Susie tried calling Mummy, but phone didn't work. Madame Gazelle planned everything. Labubu spoke with voice from underworld. He demanded children's souls be brought to him. Madame Gazelle tied children with ropes. She sang strange songs in ancient language. Labubu became enormous, filling half classroom. His red eyes blazed with hunger. Madame Gazelle raised knife, preparing to begin ritual. Children screamed, but nobody heard. Suddenly, parents burst into classroom, but it was too late. Ritual had begun. Demon turned to children. Now they had to serve him and find new victims.